Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my introductory lecture for IS430 in the spring of 2023. Now, on my screen here, you can see that I'm on Canvas, and I clicked on courses. So you can see the courses that I'm teaching in the spring of 2023. It includes three separate sections of IS430. I'm assuming that you're in one of those or the other. I'm only doing one introduction, okay? And so I've got to show one of the three Canvas sites. I've got to show one of the three weekly schedules. I've got to show one of the three syllabi. And as usual, I'm going to do it for the A section. So if you're in the B section or you're in the O section, the resources you're going to use are very similar to this, okay? But you're going to be going to a different resource, and some of the text is going to be slightly different, and I'll try to point that out as I go along, okay? So let's get started by taking a look at Canvas. Okay, so here in Canvas, I've organized the page in maybe a little different way than some of the courses at the iSchool. The template that they give us for the iSchool is just too chatty for me. It says way too much before you get to the data. So I've organized the page that have the recent announcements at the top. If you want to see the rest of them, there's a link for announcements even in your student view of the page. And then the page is organized into a series of these content blocks that Canvas calls modules. And the first one that I have is really, kind of key identifying information about the course. The second one is called Contact Us. And in this case, us is me, the instructor, and the TA, and possibly a grader. Okay. The next section that I have here is called links to Zoom meetings for other sections. I haven't populated this, and I'll talk about this in a minute. There's a section for submit assignments. Right now on your version, it probably ought to be looking at your version. Let's look at your version, student view. Yeah, there it goes. Right now on your version, the assignments are hidden because I need to go through and change the due dates. They're still set for the dates for the fall semester because I copied them over. And then I've got a module for assignment solutions. And one of the things we do in my course is that right about the time that you hand in your assignment, I publish the solutions, and we talk about your solutions and mine in the following class. Okay, so I'm going to be uncovering these as we go through the class, go through the course. Okay? Let's take a peek at the syllabus first. Okay, so there's a link here for the syllabus, and you can click through and open that up. I'm going to pull over my copy of it. Okay, and it's got the typical stuff on it. I'm not going to go through all the sections, but I'm going to go through a couple of key issues. Okay, first of all, if you go through the beginning of this, you'll notice that there's there's not a section heading for prerequisites because there are no prerequisites for this course. Okay? And that takes us to the description of the course, which I must have gone past, yeah. So you can read the catalog description, but this says, this is the first course in computer programming using the Python programming language. The overall goal of the course is to develop an information processing perspective of the world. More specifically, the objectives are to gain a broad introduction to computer programming concepts, principles, styles, and techniques through lectures and discussion and a lot of hands-on work. To develop a working proficiency in programming language through lab sessions and hands-on assignments. To nurture the ability to detect opportunities to apply programming in new scenarios. So, do you belong here? Okay. There's nobody who's underqualified to be in this course. Okay. If you're a member of the iSchool, if you're a member of the university, if you qualified to take courses at the university, you should be able to do very well in this course. Okay. Now, it's a first course. There are some people who maybe have some experience in programming, but it's old, or maybe they have some experience in programming, but it's not in Python. And maybe you're the right person to be in this course too. Okay. Now, I just want to float another possible idea that I want you to consider. I've had a number of conversations with Professor Weibel, who's teaching a different course in the current semester called I-597PR. And I have put in this first module on your page, I've created a what they call a page here called Experienced Programmers Should Consider IS430. Okay, and here's the information for your consideration. Students who are experienced programmers should consider taking Professor Weibel's course. He's teaching it in the spring. He's got quite a bit of room, so you're welcome to consider switching. He asked me to share the following with you. A copy of a syllabus, I think is from the fall, and there's a link here to get to that. And he's invited anybody who wants to know more to just come to the first class, which is on Wednesday of the first week. It's, I believe, Wednesday's January the 18th, from 9 a.m. to 11:50 in room 126 in the LIS building. Okay, and if you click through and take a look at the syllabus, okay, this is a course with prerequisites. Okay. And he says he's looking for at least 2 prior semester-length programming courses or 1 year of experience with any general-purpose language, and including some prior familiarity with Python fundamentals. Okay, so I am not going to explain anything further. It's an opportunity for those of you who have more experience, and I found that there have some people who have found their way into IS430 with quite a bit of experience. And I invite you to go find out about this opportunity and decide if it's for you. All right, end of advertisement. Okay. But again, I want to emphasize, especially to the beginners, that you all belong here. Okay? I don't care if you've never had a programming course in your life. I don't care if you can't program your DVR. I don't care if you can't operate your microwave. Okay? We get people with all backgrounds. Okay? People who commonly look and talk and act like programmers you might see on TV. And then we get all the rest of us, okay? And you all belong here, believe me, okay? And I'm so glad to have you. All right, so that's what I'm going to say about the syllabus so far, okay? Well, let's come back over here and go through a couple more things on Canvas. So there's a link to the syllabus. There's a link to this thing called the weekly schedule. And if you click through on this, you'll come to the weekly schedule. And I'm just going to pull over my copy of it in my own page. Okay, so here it is here. And I don't use the schedule capabilities of Canvas. I don't like the features. We change learning management systems as frequently as some people change their hairstyles. Okay, and so I only want to rely on the features of the learning management system so much. Okay, so this is a place to go for authoritative information about what we're doing in the course in any particular week, what your assignments are, and specifically what things are due in that week. Okay? So this is the index page. It has a table with a row for each of the official weeks of the semester, including week 17, which is exam and graduation week. Okay. And the way you get to a particular page is you click on the number of the week. So for week 1, we click on 1. Okay. The way this is organized is there's a block of content for each event that happens during the week. And the event could be a class. The event could be a lab session, an optional lab session. The event could be when assignments are due. Okay? So for instance, in week 1, for the A section, okay, our class is on Tuesday, January the 17th from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. In the Lou Engineering Building. Okay? And the information about what we're going to cover, the topics we're going to cover, the readings that you're expected to have made, the recordings you're expected to have played, and the discussion that we're going to have that you need to prep for is all right there. On Friday afternoons, from 2 to 3, we're going to have an optional lab session. And in a lab session, one, you can come if you just would like to talk about something. 2, if you need some help with some kind of assignment, this is the place to get it. 3, if you just want to see what's going on in the course, come on by, okay? It's an optional session. It's every Friday from 2 to 3 on Zoom, okay? And when you look in Canvas, if you look at listings for Zoom, you can find a session for each of these. In fact, that's a thing that'd be good to look at. So let's go back and look at the listing for Zoom. Okay, so there's a link here for Zoom meetings, and when we go to it, you'll see that there's a link for the lab session on the 20th. There's one for the lab session on the 27th. You'll also see that there are links here for class sessions. Now, the A section is an on-campus class. It's not a hybrid class. It's not an online class. I've created Zoom links for classes because we're going to use Zoom as a way of sharing our screens even when we're in an on-campus face-to-face class. We're not in a classroom that is a screen sharing classroom. So that's how we're going to do it. Okay. Now, if you're in the O section, the online section, well, this, the class session link is what we're going to use for your class. All right. So those are the Zoom sessions, and that's where you can find them. Okay. Another thing about labs is, even though I only run the course for 2 hours, in most of the sessions, not the first one because we all introduce ourselves and that takes quite a while, but in most of the sessions we get done at least a little bit early, okay? That's because a lot of the stuff like lectures are recorded, okay? We've kind of flipped the classroom, and because of that, you're expected to do a little more work outside of class. So we don't have, 3-hour classes. We have 2-hour classes that often end a bit early. And I use the rest of the time as a lab session. And usually I can stay after if I get a lot of people with questions for lab. Okay, so even though we don't have a full hour allocated for that lab, I seem to be able to take care of all the questions that come up at the end of whatever we're doing in class in that particular day. And this applies to both in-class and online sections equally well. Okay. The third block that we have here is weekly assignments deadline. The deadline is always Sunday at 11:55 p.m. I think it's 11:55 because in the old days when we were using Moodle, not Canvas, I don't think we could select 11:59 easily. So I picked 11:55. Okay. Now, in this first week, there's a lot of stuff to be done that is just getting started for the course. Installing software, choosing the computer that you're going to use, all that kind of stuff. There's also a thing called sending a greetings post to the service desk for this course. Okay. There's a lot of information on how to do that. I'll show you some more of that in a minute. And there's a tutorial on how to do that right here. So week 1 is about getting started in the course and setting up our computers and installing software and introducing ourselves to each other and setting expectations. That's what week 1 is about. Okay. All right. So now we've seen a week of the weekly schedule. Let's go back and look a little bit more at what's going on Canvas. Okay. Okay, so there's a link to the syllabus, there's a link to the weekly schedule. If there's changes to either of these, I'm going to change them, and when you go to the link, you'll go to the up-to-date document. Okay, I've already talked about if you're an experienced programmer, you may want to consider IS430 PR. The next thing, Okay. Um, I want to call you in class what you would like to be called. Okay. And that includes the names that you'd like to be called by, and the pronouns, if we can do that well. Okay. Please follow this link and go to the instructions on how to change your preferred name using the university self-service applications, such that your name on Zoom and on Canvas will be the name that you prefer. Now, the other thing I use the name for is in the in-person classes, the A section and the B section. I'm going to be providing name tags, kind of like the ones that you would get if you went to a conference. They're kind of nice, if I do say so myself. Okay. Where do I get the names that go on that? From Canvas. Okay. So I can't get your name tag right unless you go and do this. So please do this as soon as possible. And even if you don't get it done before the first class, still go do that as soon as possible, because I want to be calling you what you want to be called. Okay? There's a link here. This is part of the original template from the iSchool Getting Help in iSchool Quick Links. I think this was information that was at the top of the page that they suggested I make my first page. I put it at level 2. Those are all helpful links. Okay. We are going to have an open discussion forum in all 3 of the sections that might have a greater appeal to people who are in the online section than people who are in the face-to-face. But I just want to emphasize that this is not the place to go get help from the instructor and or the TA. Okay, we have this kind of thing called the service desk, which is how we offer help. The open discussion forum is a way to communicate with other students in the class primarily. You might get help from other students though, so don't rule that out. Okay, but if you need help from me or from the TA, don't come here to get it. Go to the service desk for the course. I'll be talking about that momentarily. Okay, and then there's a link to Zoom meetings. We've already been there. Under Contact Us, we have Instructor and TA Details. I'm the instructor, Kevin Trainer. The best way to find me is either at class or online. Okay. I do have an office in the new building at the iSchool, but I'm not there often. And I work from my home in the Chicago area a lot. So if you want to find me to have an individual meeting with me, go to our service desk and put a request in for that, and we'll set that up. It might be in person in my office, but more than likely it's going to be on Zoom. And those work pretty well. I haven't announced the identity of the TAs. We're still working some details on the staffing. I hope to do that before the end of the week. Okay. The way to contact me or the TA or a grader, if there's one for your section, is by using this service desk for this course. There's a tutorial on how to do that. Okay, and there are some links here as well. In an effort to make the length of this introductory lecture manageable, I'm going to leave it at that, okay? And I'm going to point you to the tutorial video on how to use the service desk for this course. That's right here. And there are slides for it that kind of serve as a cheat sheet to have how to use the service desk. So you may want to download those. There's also a video on here on how to play my videos. And you might think that's kind of silly and kind of meta. But if you've gotten this far in the video that you're listening to, and you haven't played this yet, you're probably thinking that I talk too slow. Because when I play these, I think that I talk too slow, okay? So if you play the video that I'm pointing to now, it'll tell you how to speed up and change the speed depending upon the activity that you have, and really have a good experience where you're in control of the experience, okay? So please do play that. And these other sections are more content coming soon. And I'll talk about those in class. There are sometimes, for instance, when somebody misses a class and they want to go to another one. Well, I'm pretty open to that, okay? One that it's really easy to come to is the online section that meets on Wednesday evenings. So I'm going to have a link here for that. There are times when people are not able to come to the lab session for their section, but they're able to come to one of the other ones. Well, I'm going to have a link here for that, okay? So I want to make it easy, but I haven't copied all the Zoom links in here yet, okay? So that is our Canvas page. Let's come back here and kind of run through the schedule a bit. I want you to know what's coming in the first couple of weeks, and then I want you to kind of get the feel for the course. Okay. Oh, before I do that, let me go to one other thing in the syllabus. The distinction between those who are registered for 4 credits and those who are registered for 2 credits. Okay? The only difference in the course between 4 credits and 2 is that people who do it for 4 do the final project. Okay? So the hand-ins for the course are all these coding assignments. I think there are 11 of them or something like that. And the final project. And the final project is about the size of maybe 3 coding assignments, something like that. Okay? The recommendation that I have is to take this for 4 credits, okay? It's not a whole lot more work. It's a good deal for the credits, okay? The only times I recommended people that they take it for 2 is if they don't have the credits to spend or they don't have the money to spend for the credits. Okay. Apart from that, I recommend that you take it for 4. Now, if you're taking it for 2 and you hear this and you go, well, I'd like to take it for 4, the paperwork to change your registration is easy to do. I think it needs your advisor approval. It needs my approval. I always give my approval. Just make sure that you do it well before the end of the semester because there's a cutoff date and that kind of stuff. Okay? All right? So the only difference between 2 credit and 4 is 4 credit people do the final project. That's it. Okay? All right. Let's come back. All right. So, in week one, we're just going to introduce ourselves and get the computer started and all that. What do we do in week two? Well, in week two, we're going to take a big jump into the content. Okay. We're going to cover the first three chapters of the Zell textbook. Okay. The first two are pretty introductory. Okay. Pretty important for people who've had done no programming before. Less challenging for people who have done some programming of some kind before. But the first real content, the first thing that has a hand-in assignment is chapter 3. And chapter 3 is about computing with numbers. Let's make this a little bit bigger so we can read it. Computing with numbers, and it's about the data types, int and float, and the arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay. And it's where we really get started. Okay. Now, this is a big week. All right. Week one's a light week. All right. One of the reasons I have everything here for you to see is that in week one, when you get done with all that easy stuff, jump into week two. Okay. Get started early. All right. It's a jam-packed week, especially if you're new, and just head right in. Okay. Everybody seems to be able to do it. Okay. It's not undoable. It's not unmanageable. It's just substantial. So forewarned is forearmed. Okay. For people who are not math people, okay, I've usually had a link here under other resources to, I used to link to a site, was like a kids math review site. And unfortunately, they've made that a pay site now, so they only show you about 2/3 of the page that I used to use. We're not doing any fancy math, but this time I'm recommending that you take a look at a book that's available to all of us. We're all entitled here at the university to a free subscription to O'Reilly.com. And it's really a terrific thing. There's lots of books there. One book that I found that covers this, I think, pretty well is called Technical Math for Dummies. It's from the For Dummies series. It's got a chapter 4 on addition and subtraction and a chapter 5 on multiplication and division. And anybody who's rusty, okay, because these are really like third grade math skills, but what's an addend? What's a subtrahend? I was a little rusty myself when I got here. Okay, this is a place where you can go and scrape all the rust off your third grade math. All right, all right. So again, we're going to have the normal lab times. There's a reminder here to send a greetings post the service test for this course. If you already did it in week one, well, then you don't have to worry about it in week two. And then there are 3 hand-in assignments. Again, they're not particularly hard. Okay. But here's where they're really challenging. For people who are new to programming, okay, it's hard to overestimate just how literal these tools are. They want you to type exactly the right thing in exactly the right place with all the punctuation and indentation exactly the right way. Until you get used to that, it can be pretty frustrating, okay? So you might spend a lot of time just learning how to communicate with the tools here. Okay. So it might not tax you intellectually, but it may tax your patience and your attention to detail. So again, I would start early on the week 2 stuff when I got done with the stuff in week 1. All right. All right. What's coming next? Oh, I didn't want to do that. I know for sure. Okay. Okay. Week 3. All right. In week 3, we're going to cover 2 chapters, one from the main text, chapter 5 from Zell on sequences, strings, lists, and files, and then there's a short chapter in the secondary text, severance on tuples. Okay, again, this is a pretty substantial week. But when we're done with it, we can do a lot of good stuff. Okay, so this again is week 3. By the time we get out of week 3, we're writing some programs that are not completely toy-like. Okay, so this is, I think you're going to like where we are by about the end of week 3. Okay, in week 4, we go on to chapter 6 and we learn about Python functions. Python functions are kind of a good way to organize your code. So they become especially important as we begin to write longer, more complex programs. If we can't organize our work into functions, they really become unmanageable. So a really important chapter, and we do some fun stuff. In week 5, we cover Zell chapter 7 on decision structures, and this has to do with conditional executions, things like if else. Okay. Up until now, everything that we've been doing is pretty deterministic, okay? But the fact is, when most of us think about computer applications, we think of them as being able to do different behavior depending on what's in the data, okay? And it's not until we get to chapter 7 in week 5 that we learn how to do this for ourselves, okay? In week 6, we're moving on to Zell chapter 8. We're talking about loop structures and Booleans. Computers are very literal and plotting, but they're immensely fast. And one of the ways that they do things is that they do things over and over again in a loop. Okay? Now, we don't cover loops formally till we get to chapter 8, but we've been kind of borrowing ahead in all the chapters so far, and we've been doing some kind of simple versions of looping. Okay, in chapter 8, we learn the rest. Okay, and again, now we can write more robust, realistic, less toy-like programs. Okay. In week 7, we're going to cover chapter 11 from Zell, which is about data collections. And we're going to learn about lists, more about lists. We've already learned some of that in chapter 5. So we're going to learn quite a bit more about lists, and we're going to learn about these things called dictionaries, which we use to look up things in. We work with key value pairs, kind of like the dictionary that we look things up in when we're reading and we're writing in our everyday life. Okay, so again, there's a whole other kind of range of problems that we can solve when we learn these things. The next week, week 8, we're going to learn about regular expressions. Regular expressions are kind of a sub-language that's supported by Python that is really helpful when you're searching for string patterns in data. Doing things like this. You have some kind of a server log, or you have some kind of a data set you got from some partner, and you need to find things in it that you're interested in. So you've got millions of lines of things, and you want to pick out the 50 or the 100 or the 200 that are the ones that you're interested in. The regular expression language is a really powerful way to develop patterns to identify just the lines of text that we want to read or operate on or change or process, whatever we want to do. They're fun too. Week 9 we have off. We're on spring break. Week 10, we're going to do Zell Chapter 9, which is officially called Simulation and Design. Really emphasis on design. It's really about how to write more complex programs. Now, we start out in the beginning of the course with very simple programs. And by the time that we get here before Chapter 9, they've gotten more complex as we go along. In Chapter 9, we dive into something that's more complex yet. And the thing that we choose to practice on are simulations of games. Okay, so we do something with a coin toss game. We do something with a dice game. Another thing that we take a look at is a rock, paper, scissors game. And the thing about games is there's a lot of things that are going on at the same time. And so it's a level of complexity that's new, and it's a challenge in design that's new. And so in the chapter that has to do with how to design for larger and more complex things, we get to play some game stuff and we get to have some fun. The next chapter that we cover is Severance, Chapter 14 on object-oriented programming. And here's where we learn how to write custom Python classes ourselves. Up until now, we've been using Python classes that are either built into Python. They come already there, already out of the box, or have been created by somebody else, like, for instance, me, and given to you to use. And in this chapter, we learn how to create simple custom Python classes of our own. And the last thing that we cover, the last skill that we cover in week 12, is we learn how to work with Jupyter notebooks. This is a computing platform that supports Python. It's very popular in data science. And what we try to do, there's a lot of courses at the iSchool where they do data science with Python, and they only work with Jupyter notebooks. We finish off with that. We take all the things that we've learned about other kind of tools in working with Python, and we finish up by connecting all that up to now that you're a person who knows more about Python, well then how would you use Jupyter Notebook? And the very last thing that I do is I demonstrate the Pandas library for you in week 13. That's a Pandas is a very popular Python library used for data science. And the reason that I demonstrated for you is that having gone through the course, you should be able to learn pretty much any of the Python libraries, especially the data science ones. When you go take a course or you go read a book or you take a tutorial and you want to learn one of these things that's based upon these Python libraries, it's all Python that we've learned. Now, the data science is a whole new skill, right? The statistics, and all those things. And the details of how to use that package are a whole new skill. But in this week, I really want to demonstrate to you that you are in the position to go learn really any of these packages because they're all based on Python and you know Python now. Okay, so the 2 credit people get off the bus right here. Okay, and the people who are taking the course for 4 credits keep going. Okay, so in week 14, the people who are taking the course for 4 credits are working on their final project. And again, the final project is about the size of maybe 3 coding assignments, something like this. And so you're working on that, okay? We're not having in-person classes for those of you who are in the on-campus sections. What we do is we take the class and we turn it into another lab that happens online. Okay, so instead of 1 online lab a week, we have 2. Okay, so we do that in week 14. Again, 2 credit people have already left the building. Okay, 4 credit people only at this point. In week 15, we do the same thing. We're just working on the final project. Okay. And we're going to have 2 online lab sessions. And week 16, we do have 1 class on Tuesday, so we're going to have yet 1 more online lab session. We don't have a lab session on Friday because the semester is over, and then the final project is due Friday evening at 11:55. Okay, so those last 3 weeks, 14, 15, and 16, are for the 4 credit people. The 2 credit people have already left the building after week 13. Okay, so that's what's in the course, again, and that's how it's organized. Okay, now I'm going to take a little break for a second and get a sip of water or 2. And I suggest that you do the same thing. I'm going to come back and go through the syllabus. I promise not to be too long-winded. Okay, so let me find my pause. Here it is. All right, here we go again. I'm back from my little break. Okay, so again, the syllabus. This is the syllabus I'm showing you for the A section. It meets on campus on Tuesdays from 9:30 a.m. till 11:30. The B section meets on campus from 12:30 to 2:30 on Tuesdays, and the O section meets on Wednesday evenings online from 7 to 9. Okay. We've already talked about lab sessions. So we're going to have some lab time at the end of a normal class session. And again, I can usually hang around to help anybody who needs help. And then we're going to have a dedicated lab session on Friday afternoon. So the lab session for the A section is from 2 to 3. The lab session for the B section is from 3 to 4. The lab session for the O section is from 4 to 5. I'm going to pull the links into Canvas such that if you really need to come to one that's not organized for you, well, you can. All right? Just haven't done that yet. I don't hold conventional office hours. If you need help with something and it's not confidential, just come to a lab session. If you need to talk to me more confidentially, though, go onto the service desk and put in a request for an individual meeting, and we'll set that up. It'll probably happen on Zoom. Okay? Again, if you need to contact either me or the TA or a grader, use the service desk instead of email. Email's an unreliable mess. Okay? The description of the course we've already talked about. Okay? All right. But I'm just going to point out, again, my important points. Okay? There's nobody who's part of our community who's underqualified to be in this course. You're all welcome. I expect you all to do well. I probably have had students like you before. If you're a lot more experienced, if you're consider yourself an experienced programmer, and you haven't already considered Professor Weibel's IS597 PR, well then do consider it. Okay, you're all welcome here. The topics are the ones I went through when I went through the schedule. Okay, the learning outcomes. Let's see. Understand the role that programming plays in information processing and management. Identify opportunities for the information worker to solve everyday work problems using programming. Design, code, and test procedural programs in Python to make use of object-oriented classes provided by others. So most of the work that we're going to be doing are going to be using Python classes that are either built in or provided by me. But we are going to design, code, and test a simple object-oriented custom Python class that you create, and you're going to get to use the PyCharm Professional integrated development environment, sometimes called an IDE. The textbooks are the Zell book, pretty affordable and good book. A paperback, please get one. Or the Severance, the Zell book also has an electronic version, so feel free to get that. It's probably less expensive. In the Severance book, I recommend the electronic version. There is a print version if you must buy it. Okay. Most of our work is going to be done in the Zell book, but some of our secondary readings are optional readings, and two of the primary ones are in the Severance book. In terms of technology requirements, you're going to be doing all your work on your own PC. Most people use a laptop that uses either Windows or Mac OS. Okay. In terms of Windows 10 or 11 works fine. In terms of Mac OS, you want a recent release of Mac OS. This stuff will run on Linux, but you're just not going to get as good of support for that that you would on Windows or Mac. So if you really want to use Linux for this course, you're probably going to be supporting yourself So please contact me to discuss that first. Okay? The software that we're going to be using primarily is Anaconda and PyCharm Professional, two things that I'm asking you to install in week 1, and there are tutorials on that. If for some reason, especially things like accessibility, you can't use these exact tools, then you need to contact me so we can work out a suitable alternative. Other than that, I'm going to be expectedly using those exact tools. I already showed you how to find the course schedule. Here's another link to it. So depending upon the section that you're in, your syllabus should be linking to the schedule for your section. Okay. If I change the schedule, I make announcements on the announcements forum. Okay. In terms of the elements of the course, readings are important, okay? So we've got readings, lecture videos, tutorial videos, okay? There are readings that I marked as required. That's the primary information for the week. Okay, there are readings that I marked as optional. They're kind of like another version of the same thing. The lecture videos actually fall into two types. Okay, I'm not going to be lecturing in class, right? So if you want to get a lecture, you've got to play the videos. The normal lecture for the book chapter is going to be pretty parallel to the reading. I have a lot of additional commentary. I think it adds value. Okay, you'll have to decide for you. Okay, so I leave it up to you to decide whether you're going to read the chapter and play the lecture, or whether you're going to do one or the other. Okay, you sample it and you figure out what's going to work for you. Okay. The second kind of lecture that I have is called Beyond the Textbook. This isn't in the book. Okay, so play these for sure, because I want you to know these things. Okay. The tutorial videos fall into two categories. The first one has to do with like how to install stuff, how to submit things, how to read our grading rubric. Okay, definitely play those. And then there's a lot of tutorials that are coordinated with the exercise in your coding assignments. Usually you get to watch me do a similar program, okay? And you're allowed to consult with what I did when you create the solution to the exercise that you're going to do, which is similar but not the same. I'm going to want you to do the coding assignments and hand them in on time, okay? Because if you don't, when we look at the solutions, they're just going to look easy. Okay? Everything looks easy. Is, for instance, if you watch a cooking show and they create a very challenging dish, when they do it, they make it look easy. Okay? The hard thing is when you try to make the recipe yourself. That's where you really learn. And sometimes you do easily, other times you struggle, but you'll always learn. Okay? You need to do this. Okay? Well, you're going to have to wrap this up. I got an appointment coming up. So do the work on time. We're going to review the solutions in class. Okay. That's where you're really going to figure out how you did. And you can ask, well, how did I get lost on this? We can talk about it. Okay. I want you to know pretty much how well you did on it just from our reviewing the solution in class. You should be able to predict what your grade is from that. Now, you don't have to predict it and hand that in. That's not an assignment. But you ought to know, okay? In addition, within 2 weeks, we plan to grade every assignment and send you feedback. Every assignment, when we enter the grade, we generate a feedback form from which you ought to be able to understand how we graded it and what comments we wanted to share. I'll talk about the grading for the coding assignments in a minute. The final project is a project in the following way. It's a giant coding assignment. Okay, it's about the size of 3 regular coding assignments, and it's coordinated. It's a project. It's something that you do from beginning to end. This is not a group assignment. This is not a project that you have to choose and define. Everybody does the same one, and everybody does them individually. Okay? Now, I don't have all the details of the instructions for the final project, and probably I think that the instructions and the details for the last 3 or 4 things or something like that are not going to come out till later, because I improve them every semester, and these need some work, but they'll be out soon. Attendance is important. It's required. It's not graded per se, but because we grade participation, and almost every way that you earn participation points is by being a class, well, it's graded indirectly. If you miss a class, well, it's really easy if you're in the online section. Just go find the recording and play it. Okay. If you're in one of the on-campus face-to-face classes on Tuesday and you miss a class, well, you should really come to the online class on Wednesday evening. We'd be glad to have you there. Okay. Participation. You earn points for participation. You earn them for making your greetings post during the first 2 weeks of the course, making a speaking contribution during a class. If you're in an online class, if you type in some chat, you get some credit for that. If you present your work, which is usually your solution to a coding assignment, then you get credit. Or if you, usually we discuss these things in breakout groups before we report back. And if you're the spokesperson for your breakout group, well, then you get credit for that. Okay? And I keep track of all these things. It's a pain, but it's the only way to do this fairly. And I compile it at the end. I add up all the points and we grade it on a curve. I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. Now, I've got a page and a half of course grading policies here. I didn't used to have this. I've been teaching I'm coming up on 15 years now, but what happens is that a few people just get highly disappointed by things that most people would understand. Okay, so there's a lot of detail here. It reads like the contract for a lease car. Okay, it's just a lot of terms and conditions. And for those of you who kind of understand this stuff naturally well, I apologize for all the content here. But for those of you who might miss this, well, it's important. Okay, so the first thing is there are university and high school policies that apply to grading, and those apply in my class too. You have to have careful attention to detail on this, of course. This is really a detail-oriented enterprise. So before you hand in your work, reread the instructions, reread the grading rubric, and make sure you haven't left any points on the table. Because for some people who are not used to being detail-oriented, they miss some things and they leave some points on the table. Because it's important to hand things in on time, and there's a penalty for being late, okay? And because I hand out the solutions when we come to class, I don't allow resubmissions of assignments after the deadline. If you missed it, you missed it. Can you resubmit before the deadline? Like, you handed it in early and then you want to talk to a friend and they ask you, well, what did you do about this? And you say that and they go, oh, you forgot something? You go, oh my God, I already handed it in. Well, if you haven't come to the deadline yet, you can resubmit it, okay? No problem, but the deadline is the deadline. Except if you get an extension. So if you ask for an extension for a reasonable reason before the deadline, I'll usually give you one. I usually don't grant extensions beyond the beginning of our next class. So things are due on Sunday night, okay? If you need until the beginning of the next class for some reasonable reason, I'll usually grant an extension. It's hard to grant extensions till sometime after I've handed out the solution. Deductions will be made for late submissions. So if you don't submit on time, you lose 15 points. So if you submit on time, you can earn up to 100. If you submit late, you can only earn up to 84. Okay, so submit on time. Okay, or get an extension. Assignments submitted too late will not be graded. So what's too late? Well, for coding assignment, 14 days is the limit. For final project, 7 days is the limit. If you think you're going to miss that and we're going to give you a 0 because you were too late, well, you can apply for an extension, okay? We don't give very many of those at all, but don't let the deadline lapse without making your case for some kind of extension on this policy. The next one, grade adjustments will be limited to automatic rounding. So the way that we round is that every assignment is graded on 100 points, okay, from 0 to 100. And when you earn a fractional score, well, if it's up to 0.4, then we round down. If it's 0.5 through 0.9, then we round up. And then when we calculate the whole course, we do the same thing. That's all we do. Even if one more point on one assignment would get you from a A minus, from a B plus to an A minus, we're not going to do it. Okay, we're just going to round. That's it. So with that in mind, do all the work to get the points, when you can still get the points, okay? Because there's no case to be made after the fact. Regrading requests made using the service desk will be given fair consideration. Two situations. One is that we missed your assignment. It happens, okay? Especially if you hand it in late, okay? Open a ticket, remind us that we need to grade it. Or if you get your grade back and you go, I looked at this, I read the grading feedback form, I don't think that they understood my work, okay? I'd like them to take another look. Well, open up a ticket, ask us to regrade it, we'll give it fair consideration. If we made a mistake, we'll admit it, okay? If we didn't, well, we'll tell you why. Extra credit opportunities are not available, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the grade deal that I give on the coding assignments, which is pretty lenient, and it's hard to ruin your grade by making a silly mistake, okay? Because of that, we just don't do extra credit opportunities at all. I can't offer extra credit opportunities to some and not to others. And because of that, I don't do it, okay? The deal for, I haven't gotten to the one that I thought. The normal grade for meeting all the expectation on the regular parts of assignments is 95, okay? 95 is a good solid A. We have, on these assignments, we have regular exercises. If you meet all the expectations on regular exercises, you get a 95. We always have a challenge exercise. There you can earn somewhere between 0 and 5 additional points, depending upon how you perform, okay? Those are hard. I don't give as much help on them, okay? Mostly hints, all right? So the difference between a 95 and 100 is pretty hard to travel that distance. Okay, a coding assignment submissions that meet certain criteria are subject to a minimum score guarantee. Okay, so if you submit your work in a properly named and formatted file, that helps us to do the grading substantially. So we give you some points for that. And if you submit your work by the deadline and you make a good faith effort on all parts, well, then that helps all of us too. So the deal is, if you do what we expect in handing in a properly named and properly a properly organized and easy to grade file, you'll earn 10 points. If you demonstrate a good faith effort on all of the regular exercises, you'll earn 75. Okay, so if you meet those expectations, which I think are pretty easy to meet, you'll earn at least an 85. Okay. If you hand it in late, you can't get more than an 84. Okay. If you hand in a file that's improperly named and or organized, well, there's no way to get more than 90 because you've left 10 points on the table. Okay, we're trying to help you, and we want you to help us because we have a lot of things to grade. Your participation points are going to be calculated the following way. When you do your greetings post in either week 1 or week 2, you earn 10 participation points. When you speak during class, you earn 2. If you're in an online class and you chat, you'll earn 1 for the chat. If you make a presentation of your work, typically your coding assignment, you'll earn 5. And in addition, if you act as the one spokesperson for your breakout group, then you'll earn 5. And we just add them up all semester long. And then we calculate the grade that you're going to get based upon a curve. So we take the points that everybody earned, and we figure the percentile that you earned. Okay. We can have 100 percentile because we calculate it on the basis of you have to be, it's the percentage that you are the same or greater than. Okay, so if you're the top person, you're the same as yourself, you're in the 100th percentile. So in the 100th percentile, you get 100. In the 75th percentile, you get a 95. In the 50th, you get a 90. In the 25th, you get an 80. In the 10th percentile, you get a 70. Less than 10th, you get a 60. And if you don't get 10 points, which again, you can then get by doing your greetings post, you get 0. And scores in between are extrapolated by how far your percentage is in between these points. So if you had a percentage, you had a percentile of 81, we would extrapolate that to come out with the score between 95 and 100. Okay. Attendance in class may affect your grade, okay, because these things that you're earning, you earn at class except for the gradings post. Okay, that's the only way you can do it. You got to show up and you got to participate. Okay, and this turns out to be 10% of your grade. Now, 10% of your grade is a whole letter grade. It's the difference between an A and a B, or it's the difference between a B and a C. It's giant, okay? So please be part of this. So now I come to academic integrity policies and practices for this course. And it's pretty long, but here's the deal, okay? Except for programs that I give you, which are starter files, or tutorial examples that I show you in a video, well, I'm expecting all this code to be yours individually, okay? And I'm going to compare the programs, so I'm going to expect them to be different, okay? So I don't want anybody to copy anybody else's work, and that includes people in the class, that includes people in other classes, that includes people in past classes, that includes solutions created by AI engines like chatbot, chat GPT, okay? I'm going to be looking for people who are copying stuff, okay? And that's going to be a problem for the copyee and the copier, okay? So yeah, can you talk about code? Sure, you can talk about code, okay? Could you even sketch some things out on a board somewhere and talk about it? That's fine. But go back and do the code independently and type it into your computer. And I'm going to expect them to be differences. There should be differences in the way you name your variables. There should be differences in the way you name your functions. Anytime these things are the same, I'm going to suspect that somebody's been copying. And you would think, well, who would ever do that? Well, unfortunately, some people do. What really motivates them to do that? Sometimes desperation. I don't know. But in a class where there are 2 labs a week where you can come and ask any question that you want and show your code, and get help, there's no reason that you should be copying from anybody or allowing other people to copy from you. And the penalties for violations of the academic integrity policy are stiff. So steer clear of this for sure. The basis of the grade. So 2 scenarios. If you're taking this for 4 credits, well, the participation is 10%. The coding assignments are 45%. The final project is 45%. If you're taking it for 2 credits, participation is 10%. Coding assignments are 90%. Okay, and then the translation of your grade, it's going to be rounded, okay, to the nearest whole number, and then we're going to use this table to figure out your letter grade. And this is a table that's used pretty widely in high school. Okay, and regardless of how close you are to the next grade level, okay, the only adjustment that I will make is just rounding the number grade to get a whole number. That's it. Now, last but not least is high school and university academic policies. And this is kind of a challenging section because on one hand, these are all very important things, okay? And I want to emphasize how important they are. On the other hand, this is what we call in the contracts world boilerplate. This is language we put into every instance. So you should be seeing the same thing here for every one of your courses. So if you've really seen this before and you really understand it, well, great, okay? But if you've never seen it before or you don't understand it, you really need to understand it, okay? So these are all things that we're serious about, like incomplete grades, like a grade of I. Very hard to get at the University of Illinois. Read to find out more. iSchool academic integrity. Academic integrity violations are stiff. Steer clear of them. More to read here. Statement of inclusion. You're all welcome here, and it's our intention to treat you respectfully. And it's our intention for you to treat each other equally respectfully. Okay? If that's not happening, we've got to fix that. Okay? More to read. Religious observances. We have some holidays off, but they don't cover all religious observance holidays. So if you have a religious observance holiday that's not taken care of, well, read this and fill out the forms and we will help you. And accessibility, okay? I think as time goes on, we come to realize that most people are not typically able, okay? People really understand themselves well. They realize that the average abilities, it's a very narrow band, okay? Some people who are differently abled are entitled to accessibility accommodations from the university. And there's a program called DRES to help them, okay? So if you have dress accommodations, well, you need to share them with me and I'll do my best to help. If you think you might be entitled to some, well, I encourage you to contact the DRES folks because they help people all the time. And I see examples of it and I think they do good work. Okay. COVID-19. Okay. We need you to follow the policies for COVID-19. It looks like the university is not going to require masks. I'm going to wear a mask. I'd like you to wear a mask if you can. Okay. I wear a mask every time I go inside in public. This is the semester I turned 70. Okay, so I don't even go out to restaurants, but maybe once a quarter. Okay, so if you can wear a mask, please do. Please follow the policies. If you get sick, let me know. We'll try to help. I have found over the past several years that the iSchool community has been pretty good at supporting each other related to the pandemic, and I'm just going to expect that to continue. So all of these things are important. They may include something that you may need some help with. If you need some help, even if I'm not the one who's eventually going to help you, I could be the person to connect you with the people who will help. Okay? So contact me and I'll do my best. So I've gone on long enough. I apologize for being long-winded, but I am. I'm excited to have you in the course. We usually have a lot of fun. This is a topic I really like. Okay, I've been a programmer for, 50 years. And it's been one of the funnest things I do for 50 years. And teaching people to do this is one of the funnest things I ever teach. So I expect to have fun. I'm hoping that you will too. I'm very glad you're here. Feel free to ask questions of me. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class on week 1, and I'll say bye until next time. Bye-bye.